All right, good morning, everyone. So today we have this new session on consciousness, in which we will try to view consciousness as willpower. Consciousness is not only an awareness, which is true, totally true, but that awareness is the power. So I'm just quoting from Sri Aurobindo here. One loosened corner, windowing hidden things, forced the world's blind immensity to sight. So that luminous corner, that light of awareness, in one corner it is enough to force, and this is the willpower, the whole world's blind immensity to sight, to see. So this is that great power which consciousness has. And of course, we never think of consciousness as power. That's the problem. We always speak about consciousness as awareness. And myself, I'm many times thinking of consciousness only as awareness. But I do not see that consciousness acts upon me and upon the world. So the definition of consciousness which Mother gives, one of the definitions, is here that consciousness is the faculty of becoming aware of anything through identification. And this is quite interesting. Identification with what? With our own being. So one being is being identified with anything in the world, with any other being or any other detail of that infinite being. That power of identification is consciousness. And in this case, we can be anything because we can identify with this existence in any of those details or properties or events or activities. And being identified with them, we become them. And that is something wonderful. So to say, it acts as a will, as what Sri Aurobindo says about himself, that he wasn't a philosopher, but he made himself a philosopher. He wasn't a poet, but he made himself a poet. We can become anything we want. And today morning I was thinking, what could I say about this topic? And what came to my mind is that when we were children, you remember, we were thinking whom we want to be, whom I want to become. I want to become this, I want to become that, a dentist, a cosmonaut, a fireman. Why? It is so attractive for us to identify ourselves with a particular way of being, a particular activity, and become that activity. And this is the power of consciousness or will. So since being is everywhere, it is present outside, infinitely outside, and infinitely inside, so we can widen the scope of consciousness and widen it not only inside, but also outside, and embrace the whole world as ourselves. So consciousness is present throughout the world. It is not just phenomena of one individual being. We are many individuals, but we possess one infinite and universal consciousness. Somewhere even Sri Aurobindo says that consciousness, you don't need to identify or to focus consciousness in one particular region or in the head or over the head or in the heart or in the body or outside the body. It can be everywhere, present at the same time. It doesn't need a focus. It doesn't need a location. It can be located, but also it can be present without location. So I wanted to jump into very interesting, the oldest writings of Sri Aurobindo, which is called Yogic Sadhana. It was his first automatic writing, and it made a very great impact on all of us, those who follow Sri Aurobindo. His definition of will. And here I will read the beginning of this work. The proper cause of the sadhana is just the opposite of the thing most people do, and you have also done. People begin with the body and the prana, go on to the chitta and the manas, and finish up with the buddhi and the will. The real cause is to start with the will and finish with the body. There is no need of asana, pranayama, kumbhaka, chitta, shuddhi, or anything else preparatory or preliminary if one starts with the will. So all these words you know, yes? Chitta is the consciousness which we already embody. Manas is the sense mind. Prana is the energy in the body. So buddhi is our higher reason, higher intelligence. So asana is the work of the body. Pranayama is the breathing exercises. Kumbhaka is holding breath. Chitta shuddhi, purification of chitta, of our consciousness embodied here. All this is preliminary as we see it in Yoga Sutras, where we start from yama, niyama, then asana, pranayama, and so on. Yes. So we are growing from below up. But this work, what he is writing about, is about to start with the will in opposite direction and come back to these lower members and purify them. So that was what Sri Ramakrishna came to show so far as yoga is concerned. Do the Shakti Upasana first. Do the Shakti worshipping first. He said, get Shakti and she will give you Sat. You get the Shakti and she will bring you the being. Will and Shakti are the first means necessary to the yogin. That was why he said always, remember you are Brahman. And he gave that as a central message to Swami Vivekananda. You are Ishvara, Ishvara the Lord. If you choose, you can be Shuddha, you can be pure. Siddha, you can be realized. And everything else. Or if you choose, you can be just the opposite. You can be nothing. The first necessity is to believe in yourself. The second, in God. And the third, to believe in Kali, in the mother, in Shakti. For these things make up the world. Educate the will first. Through the will, educate the jnanam, the knowledge. Through the jnanam, purify chitta, purify your embodied consciousness. Control the prana, the energy in the body. Calm the manas, the sense mind. Through all these instruments, immortalize the body. That is the real yoga, the Mahapantha, the great path. That is the true and only Tantra. The Vedanta starts with Buddhi, with knowledge. The Tantra starts with Shakti. So this is Sri Aurobindo, early Sri Aurobindo. You can see this power of will, of vision of consciousness as will. And here is another passage next to it, which is explaining what is Shakti. What the will is, you have heard. It is Shakti. It is not Vasana. It is not Cheshta. Vasana is desire. Cheshta is the effort. Vasana and Cheshta are the negation of will. If you have desire, that means you doubt the power of your will. Brahman has no desire. He wills, and all things happen accordingly to his will. If you have cheshta, that means you doubt your will. Only those who feel or think they are not strong struggle and labor to produce an effect. Brahman has no cheshta, has no effort. He wills, and his will spontaneously produces its effect. But it produces it in time, space, and causality. To demand a result now, here, and under given conditions is ajñanam, is not knowledge, not knowing, ignorance. The time, space, and causality of every event and its development have been fixed ages ago by yourself and Parameshvara and the highest Lord. So it's me and highest Lord fixed the conditions of this unfolding. When the kalpa began, from the beginning of our kalpa, it is ignorance to struggle and try to alter what you have yourself decreed. Care not about time, space, or conditions, but will. And leave the result to God, who is your omnipotent, omnipresent, and omniscient self. You are the individual God, and he is the universal God. Nothing but God exists. Ekam eva dvitiyam. Therefore, will implies samatha, implies equality, absence of vasana and cheshta, absence of desire and effort. Absence of vasana and cheshta implies knowledge. Until you have knowledge, you can never be safe against the return of vasana and cheshta. This is something very interesting, because even knowledge, which I translate as knowledge, jnana, means self-realization. This is early writing of Sri Aurobindo. You can see how much was put on the power of will. If we look into what Mother says, it's also very profound. To learn how to will is a very important thing. And to will truly, you must unify your being. In fact, to be a being, one must first unify oneself. And here the whole secret of our self-finding, it is unification. If one is pulled by absolutely opposite tendencies, if one spends 3/4 of one's life without being conscious of oneself and the reasons why one does things, is one a real being? It's a very proper question. One does not exist, says the Mother. It is a mass of influences, movements, forces, actions, reactions, but one is not a being. There is no being. It's a kind of amalgam of things which is reacting wherever it is needed. One begins to become a being when one begins to have a will. And one can't have a will unless one is unified. Now, this unification of the being is what we call yoga. In the Gita, the word yukta is used, unified, the one who is, whose parts of the being are connected with the center or with the divine, with the true being. So centering all the bits and pieces of oneself around true being is to become yukta. In the Veda, it is samasita, being composed. Also interesting word, to be composed properly, to be perfectly composed, where the mind and the word, where the feeling and the will and the action and the heart are coming together as one, centered around the true being in us. Only then we can have a will, by the way. There is no other way to have it. And then a mother speaks about surrendering our own will to the divine will. And when you have a will, it's only when we have a will, you will be able to say to the divine, I want what you want. But not before that. Because in order to want what the divine wants, you must have a will. Otherwise, you can will nothing at all. You would like to. You would like it very much. You would very much like to want what the divine wants to do. You don't possess a will to give it to him and to put at his service. Something like that. Gelatinos, like gelatin. Like jellyfish. There, a mass of good wills. And I am considering the better side of things and forgetting the bad wills. A mass of good wills, half conscious and fluctuating. This is what we actually are. We are kind of that gelatin which tries to be good everywhere, forget bad things, invite good things, be good to others. That gelatin, we are not the being yet. We do not have our own will. I'm speaking about myself. I'm kind of, the word we here is scientific we. And here it's very interesting. Our decisions, when we make our decisions, when we apply our will, how Mother speaks about it. But for ordinary things, as for example, giving way before an impulse or refusing it, there's some impulse comes from elsewhere, from the feelings, from the mind, some thoughts, some desires, some preferences. Before accepting it, we have to apply our will. So there is a gap, and Mother speaks about this gap. It is not a space, not even the space of a second. One has plenty of time before one certainly has several minutes. We have several minutes to decide. We can feel that the proposition from the world has come, some feeling, some vibration, and it is hanging within our atmosphere, within our consciousness. We can feel its presence. It is pushing us. It is demanding attention from us. It wants us to decide to accept it, and we accept it or reject it. So, and it is a choice between weak submission to this vibration or a controlling will. And if the will is clear, if it is based on truth, if truly it obeys the truth and is clear, it always has the power to refuse the wrong movement. It is an excuse you give yourself when you say, I could not. It is not true. It is that truly you have not wanted it in the right way. For there is always the choice between saying yes and saying no. But one chooses to be weak and later gives oneself this excuse saying, it is not my fault. It was stronger than I. And now Mother says the phrase, it is your fault if the thing was stronger than you. There is no excuse. Because you are not these impulses. You are a conscious soul and an intelligent will. And your duty is to see that this is what governs you and not the impulses from below. Now, here we need this awareness of ourselves. We need that lucent corner windowing hidden things to shine onto us, that we would have the power to see and power to decide, to accept the vibration or not. And many times we accept them because they bring with them some kind of satisfaction for our senses, satisfaction for our faculties. And we are kind of constantly satisfying our senses. That's how we live, unconsciously, not knowing ourselves. But there is a will of consciousness we can apply. And many times we give in for these forces because they are familiar to us. We know what they do. We agree to it. We want to receive that little delight for the senses. And by that we are losing ourselves. We are not aware of who we are. So consciousness can be turned, fixed, widened, can be internalized, externalized, can do anything because it is present throughout, because the existence, the being, is everywhere. So I'm choosing this slide from my previous presentation. Consciousness can be turned outside. This adhidaiva, these faculties, these senses can be turned outside or can be turned within, or can stay within themselves, brooding within themselves. So this is the biggest dilemma of our consciousness. Yes, Igor.
Hello, Vladimir. I want to check if I understanding what the will is in this context. For example, sometimes I have some movements inside, inner. It's like you know what you want, and if you follow this desire, if I can say, it's happening easily.
Yeah.
But the question is that effect, that manifestation of my desires is coming, is a consequence of my activity,
Choosing.
or really is because the causes of that manifestation, it was done it before, and I'm only and so I am only how do you say, the public, a spectator. I don't know in English, like a spectator. I'm not really the cause of that manifestation, but I'm receiving the movement of the cause through me, and I can observe the manifestation. It's like the seed, the original seed. It was before.
Yeah, this is a, yeah, I understand your question very well. This is the biggest difference between these, karmic religions, karmic philosophies, which believe that everything is here inevitably kind of projected in the nature. Everything is the divine. This is the spiritual look. Everything is the divine. Therefore, I have to be a spectator. The observer of whatever happens, whatever comes into me, into myself, is already there, and it must be there because it was already predetermined by some karma, or by my previous actions, or by my position in nature. Now, what I am given only the possibility is to observe it and to become free from it. So this world is the illusion, and I become aware of myself, which is true being, true consciousness behind it, viewing all these events without any preference, without any attachment. Let them flow through you. There was a very good example about this. Somebody brought this to Sri Aurobindo in evening talks. I think it was Purani or someone who mentioned that one time the Brahmin with prostitute, sannyasi with prostitute, two of them, came to Ramakrishna's mission. And they stayed with Ramakrishna. And Ramakrishna was furious with this sannyasi. He said, "Why did you bring this lady with yourself?" Yeah? And he said, "Why are you so angry? I am Brahman. She is Brahman. You are Brahman. What is your problem?" And Ramakrishna said, yes, I spit on your Vedanta. I spit on your Vedanta. So he was so furious. And they brought this instance to Sri Aurobindo and wanted him to comment. And Sri Aurobindo says, yes, actually Sannyasin is right. Everything is Brahman. It's true. Everything. And there is no difference, basically, between him, prostitute, Ramakrishna. But Ramakrishna viewed it from the psychic point of view, not from the spiritual look. Now, there is a spiritual look, what you are now saying. Where is in that spiritual look a will? There is no will, actually, because everything is already willed. Yeah? What we have to do is to find the observer, the one who is beyond this manifestation, and from that look, see what it is, how it is being unfolded. From this point of view, there is no evolution either. It's actually a cycle which ends within itself. When I find myself beyond the manifestation, I look at everything what is happening to me with no interest. There is no evolution. There is no betterment of me. I'm not becoming better because all this, what I am, is actually something which has happened by something which has no value for me anymore. So I'm not looking for in making myself better, progress, evolve, grow in consciousness. I found the immortal consciousness, infinite, beyond it. So why should I bother about the consciousness of the mind, of the vital, of the body, to make them more perfect, to make them work better? There is connection is unstable. Most probably there was interruption. But why should
I can follow you.
Yeah, why should I follow it? Yeah. So here the idea of the will and the evolution and everything changes. It's not this view. There is no increase of the capacity of the instrument to embody the consciousness and to be able to move within these worlds and to bring the divine down into this adhara and to embody it here. This is the Buddhistic view, and also Advaitic view. And you can see that they are true, but only partially true. A half-truth is there, because there is another half of this manifestation of the divine here. Everything is to be manifested with the divine. Ishavasyamidam sarvam. All this world is to be embodied by the divine. Whatever moves in this universal motion, everything is to be embodying the divine. This is the vision of the Veda. And not just going away from it into the spiritual divine consciousness, from which everything looks like a Maya, illusion, and not worth really paying attention to. So I'm safe there. It's what Sri Aurobindo calls escape. Escape brings not the victory and the crown. Escape brings not the victory and the crown. Now, this victory and the crown is in this manifestation, and it requires will. The will to shift consciousness, to widen it here, to deepen it here, to bring all the light into this manifestations. This, loosened corner forced the world's blind immensity to sight. We have to force our blind immensity of nature to sight, to become conscious. This is the idea. That's why will is important.
Yeah, but it's a question of if we compare action or passivity. No, is for example, what I tried to say before is like you only can have the wishes what you are already to achieve. It's like you can there is there is not possible you have a wish in your mind, because desire or wish is the cause of the will. No, the will is the concentration of the wish, isn't it? We have to
Well,
have a
it's
wish.
exactly what he was telling, that will has nothing to do with vasana and cheshta, neither with desire nor with effort. Will is the, as he will later say, it is the prime minister of Purusha. Yeah? Purusha is the Lord, and and he has a prime minister who is doing everything in this kingdom. The body is the kingdom, mind, vital. So the prime minister comes and makes order in his government. So everybody obeys the will. Mind obeys, the vital obeys, all the feelings, sensations, they follow the will. By the way, without the will, nothing can be done. We think that this desire came to me, what could I do? It was so strong. So it was our acceptance. Before we if we would not accept that desire, it would not take place in us. We constantly accept, we constantly agree. We agree to everything what comes to us. That's why we are this kind of thing. But if we stop agreeing to everything, and we have a gap, and we agree only with the inner, the truer being within us, with truer consciousness within us, we can become anything we want. I can identify myself with anything I want. And there is a depth, and this is Adhyatma, is the depth of inner being, infinite inner being, and Adhibhuta is the depth of the outer being, the infinite outer being. So I can move from level to level with my consciousness wherever I choose. So if I choose to be on the surface and enjoy the desires, that is what my choice is. We don't see it. We think we didn't will. We will every time. We choose every moment. We agree to be what we are. That's why what we are. If we would agree to
The,
be something else, we would be something else.
yeah.
Mm.
And the will could be a combination of discrimination and movement.
Discrimination is the part of the of awareness, yeah, seeing, understanding, so to say, discerning. The
But the
will.
will, where is coming from? Where is coming the will?
The
It
will is a
can
part of
discriminate.
consciousness. Even discernment, for me to see something and to understand something and discern, the will is required. Before I start discerning and understanding, I willed to understand. Otherwise, how would I understand anything and choose to discern anything? So I chose to do it. So this choice, is this free will is given. It's a part of consciousness, of the movement of consciousness.
You know, Vladimir, if you go back a couple slides, there was a distinction made by the mother. You don't have to go back, but I just meant there was a distinction made by the mother as to intelligent will, right? So that to me seems to be the difference between just so just accepting what comes and desires and attractions and what have you, versus that which has more a will that has more and I want to put intention in there, but it's deeper connected will to the inner truth, if you will.
Yeah, there was a breaking a little bit of your voice, so we didn't hear everything you said. But yeah, I can see that you connected intelligent will as intelligent, that kind of charged with consciousness will, you know, so to say, the choosing intelligently in accordance with the conscious soul. We are the being, and to realize that, will is needed. Without that, we will not become that conscious being. This is something indispensable for us to be the being, not to be the anything and everything, whatever comes, yes? Or to reject everything and anything and to become something away from it, so to get out of it, to get into the pure consciousness where everything is Brahman, everything is the spirit, so to say, without improvement, without betterment, without evolution of the instruments, without working with the instruments of knowledge. Now, today I will come to these instruments, what role they play, like mind, vital, and so on. Yes. Yes, Siegfried.
Thank you. Thank you.
I cannot hear. Okay, something is happening.
I repeat.
Okay.
Now what I catch is the will. The will is the beginning of everything. Without the will, there is no being. That's true?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay, I understand the meaning of will.
Yeah, will is the power of consciousness which already knows everything, and if you direct it to anything, you get it, and you will know it, because it is already within the will. Yeah. Anything you can will, you can become. This is something, it's profound news for us, really. It makes us free. We can become anything, as Aurobindo says. Anything.
And we can accept anything we are because we have the will for to be.
Yes, and we do it. That's why what we are. We accepted what we are, actually. Or we rejected what we are. Whatever we did, it was done by will.
Thank you.
Yeah. So moving or, focusing consciousness in different positionings, outside, inside, above, below, within, these will be the topic of today. Yes? So one can shift consciousness from object to object and from one detail to another detail. That's what we usually do when we deal with objects. As it is done in mindfulness meditation, it's my addition. In the same way, one can move and fix consciousness within oneself in thoughts or feelings and emotions. We can get into emotion very deeply and feel it and even see what happened in sensations of the body or in the body itself. So we can define three major realms of ordinary consciousness: mental thoughts and concepts, vital emotions, feelings and sensations, and physical body awareness. We can shift and fix our consciousness at will in our thinking process, in our feelings and sensations, and in our physical consciousness. We can identify with the witnessing consciousness of our thoughts, feelings, and sensations. We can train to view our own processes of thinking, feeling, and sensations as if objectively, taking a poise of an observer, judging them and deciding to accept or to reject them. This power of consciousness is known as will, freedom of will. Is a faculty of consciousness. So this is something interesting to think, that we can direct consciousness to the objects of sense and be engaged with them, so to say. Our senses become engaged and become unaware of their own kind of seeking self-satisfaction. Or we can withdraw consciousness and view their workings of our thinking process, of our feelings. We can observe them, how they work with the object of sense. This is stepping back, as it were, and viewing them, becoming conscious of their workings and about consciousness behind them. This is exactly what the Kena Upanishad describes, yes? That it is not by the word that you can speak about Brahman, but by Brahman you can speak any word. So it is not by the sight that you can see Brahman, but because of Brahman you can see any image. It is not because of by the hearing that you can hear about Brahman, but because of Brahman you can hear any hearing. So Brahman, the consciousness, is using the faculties, and by using the faculties manifests the being in a particular way. And these faculties, like seeing, hearing, speaking, thinking, they cannot see directly or speak directly about Brahman, because they speak, see, hear because of Brahman being present in them. They represent him in action, in manifestation. So, but the shift of consciousness is still possible. We can shift it from our mental realm to our vital realm to physical, to the supramental realm, to the transcendental spiritual realm, where nothing bothers us anymore, where we pure witness Purusha. So the consciousness can move and can be fixed on every level. And here the mother's 4 different dimensions of movement of consciousness. There are 4 major movements of consciousness to widen the scope of our perception, described by the mother. Heightening or ascending above the head and above in the higher realms of consciousness. Widening the scope, expanding outside and inside. Going down into the depth of our being, to the bottom of things, to the subconscious and inconscient being, and even below inconscient being. And finally, going within the heart, deepening our presence of consciousness. All these movements can be done, and they are done in the integral yoga. We can train our consciousness to widen the scope of its perception. So Sri Aurobindo speaks on various movements of consciousness. All these are different actions of the force on the Adhara, with the one intention of opening it up from above and from below, and horizontally also. So above, below, and horizontally. The action from above opens it to the descent of forces from above, the mind, and the ascent of consciousness above the lid of the ordinary human mind. So we are going beyond the ordinary perception of the mind. The horizontal action opens it to the cosmic consciousness on all its levels. Cosmic consciousness, its outer and innermost, the subliminal realms of the cosmos, subliminal vital, subliminal mental, and physical. I will show you the scheme. Maybe I show you now. And the action from below, going down to connect the superconscient with the subconscient. Finally, the consciousness, instead of being limited to the body, becomes infinite, rises infinitely above, plunges infinitely below, widens infinitely on every side. There is, besides, the opening of all the centers to the light and power and ananda that has to descend from above. The transcendental realms are opening up and waiting to become part of our consciousness. So what is this consciousness? It can be anything and everything. Unbelievable, yes? Such a power is given to us, and we are using it in such a narrow degree, kind of such a narrow vibration, just to satisfy senses. So here is one thing which I may show, this very beautiful picture of, it's taken from Matthias' book on consciousness, but with some kind of additions which I added. I would like to add here also one more, subconscious and superconscious self. to show better how they have to be connected. So we have the surface being here, outer mind, outer vital, and outer physical. That's where we are constantly looking outside, as it were. And there the ego is our ruler. There's something, some kind of sense of being oneself, that kind of amalgam, that jellyfish, which feels that it is real, and it selects certain vibrations and gives in to certain propositions of the vital, mental, and other movements of the being outside. But the being outside is not really only the surface, it is also infinite cosmos outside. And our consciousness can widen and embrace that infinite outer being as oneself. It's also possible, and we will speak about this widening in a minute. Also, it can widen into the inner realms, and it is also an infinite realm, infinite inner mind, inner vital, and inner physical being also. And there is subconscient being below, and the superconscient above. And that's what Aurobindo says here. We can go to the superconscient and subconscious to connect them in our inner perception of being. And there is also selves behind them, which belong properly to Purusha, the presence of Purusha on the mental, vital, and physical level, which creates that sense of being or ego at the end. So Atman has two projections. One projection is through the self, or what we call koshas, yes, or purushas. So we have Anandamaya, Vijnanamaya, Manomaya, Pranamaya, and Annamaya Purusha, or Atman. So there are 5 Atmans: the blissful, the supramental, the mental, vital, and physical self, which is true self, which is holding one being throughout, through different realms of consciousness. And there is a direct projection of Atman known to us as psychic being, as the soul, which is embodied here. And this soul has direct and immediate influence on these selves within us. So this is our individual Purusha, our individual self, with elements of the universal self, of the mental self, vital self, and physical self within it. Yeah, this is our innermost nature. Then this is inner nature, Adhidaiva. So here I put Adhyatma Adhidaiva. And this is our outer nature. And consciousness can shift on all these levels. Wherever we turn it, there we go. That we become.
But normally it's a little bit stuck, the consciousness. It's not moving freely. It's very stuck. Is it proper word, stuck?
Well, it is stuck because we chose to be stuck. We wanted to be.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
We love to be stuck. As Aurobindo somewhere says, we also love freedom, but we also worship our chains. We are happy with our cages. We're kissing our chains all the time. We want our chains to be there. The moment they are loosening up, we are lost. We want them back. We pull them back and put them down again. Again, I am myself. I can recognize myself. I know myself. This ego sense, this kind of recognition of oneself as such, depends on these chains holding us. Yeah. I have my problems of health. I have my problems of desires. This is me. This is how I am. I am unique. Yeah? And so this is how we will to be. It's our will to be. We don't dare to will to be something else. We are afraid to step out from the grooves we already know. Yeah? We are afraid. We believe that it may be something unknown. I don't know. I don't know who I am there. So how would I step into that unknown? It's a difficult proposition. Only for courageous it has to be. Yeah, so that's why one of the major faculties or major varieties, qualities of the soul is courage. Courage towards the divine. Because we do not have courage to discover the divine. Whatever we already gained, we know what it is. It's a small thing, but it is mine, It's my problem, small problem. I don't want big problems of somebody else. So that's how we choose to be this small being. Okay. So there's interesting also, well, our time is coming to the end soon. I do not know, but let me just go through these few quotations, or just one maybe, and then we can have some questions. Sri Aurobindo on the veil between the inner and the outer. There are two mutually complementary movements. In one, the inner being comes to the front and expresses its own normal motions on the outer consciousness, to which they are unusual and abnormal. So when the inner being comes to the front and starts expressing its inner consciousness for the outer, it looks totally unusual and abnormal. It is an excitement of some kind for the vital, or maybe even scare. And the vital becomes scared, the outer being becomes scared and shrinks away from it. Many people feel this when the inner being is reaching out, they are crumbling down, they are becoming scared and run away from it. The outer, and there is another moment, the outer is to draw back from the other is to draw back from the outer consciousness, to go inside into the inner planes. Enter the world of your inner self and wake in the hidden parts of your being. So we can move from the outer to the inner. When that plunge has once been taken, you are marked for the yogic, the spiritual life, and nothing can efface the seal that has been put upon you. So this movement from outside to within, once it is established, it is the seal which cannot be broken for your spiritual or yogic life. So the discovery of the inner realms of your being and your life. I think this is a good place to stop. There are many more things we will continue next time. I would like also to see how the faculties of consciousness are involved and how will is using them, how they are instrumental to the will, to the power. In the tantric tradition, these two are known as prakasha, as the light of consciousness, and vimarsha, as the action of that consciousness upon the world. So both are one and the same consciousness, only two different positions of the same. Chit tapas, or chit shakti, known in the Vedic tradition. Okay, we stop here. And if you have some ideas, I read your very nice opus, which you sent to me. Yes, this work with consciousness is very important. And in the group also, it becomes a very special device for kind of heightening and widening the scope of consciousness. I agree.
I just check. I received an email from you, but I didn't have time to read it. But I'm going to.
No, I didn't write much, but I would love us to discuss it more, because writing is not really. Yeah, there are many elements which would be difficult to write about.
Yeah.
All right.
Right is a way to manifest the will, isn't it?
Right. There is another very beautiful kind of explanation of our being. We can look into it with the subtle body behind.
Wow.
which is based on this very one. Yeah, just more elaborate. And of course, there is a Sankhya and Yoga, which we have to look into. The whole vision of how consciousness is operational on the level of manifestation. All right, so next time we will take this element of will into another dimension. We will bring it into how we can widen, deepen, and heighten our consciousness. So those elements which I had to present today, but somehow 1 hour is not enough for these things, it seems. To warm up. We just warmed up for this. Right?
Thank you, dear Vladimir, to give us this opportunity. That's amazing.
Yeah,
I think that the gifts that COVID era brings to us.
Yes, COVID era. Now it's becoming the special era. Yes, correct.
Yeah, long area starts.
Right. All right. Okay, then see you then next time, and we will continue the journey, and we'll come to the linguistic presentation of consciousness, how word is acting through consciousness as willpower. We will see more of this tantric approach to the word as the manifester of the being in this world. Okay, so all the best. See you next time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
This for you.